Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video I want to talk about the end of day fire. Now most of the people that watch the channel are just beginning at the craft of blacksmithing, so I figured that this video might be helpful to you on what you should do with the fire at the end of the day. So you've gotten done with all your forging, and now it's time to call it quits. Might be nighttime. By the time you get done with your forging, hey, it might be early morning. By the time you get done with your forging and your neighbors are fully sick of you now hammering. I've been there a little bit, done that. So what should you do with the end of the day fire if you have a coal forge? Now, I will go over real quick what you should do with a gas forge. With a gas forge or any gas appliance, everything should be shut off. You should bleed out any and all lines of any excess propane. So you should shut the bottle off at the tank. You should shut off valves, shut the tank off, go ahead and bleed out your lines and reduce any sort of pressure that you have sitting on your regulator. Next morning routine with a gas forge, you should be starting your day with putting pressure, the proper pressure that you're going to start your forge with, and soap bubble all your fittings and make sure that you don't have any leaks. The reason for this being is gas forges are quite a bit more explosive than what coal forges are, so something to keep in mind. Now, with that being said, I have never seen a gas forge explode on somebody. Usually the bottles are pressurized, and so if there is to have happen something like a hose catch fire, which I've had happen before when I used rubber hoses instead of braided, a rubber hose caught fire and it started spraying flame right out the tip, but because of the pressure it could not back up into the tank, and it eventually, basically the gas pressure, that unadulterated gas pressure, just blew out the flame out the end and it just dumped a ton of gas. Now, scary as all get out, and about scared me half to death. This was in my earlier days of smithing. But say you have a coal forge and you're working with green coal. My end of the day fire, the way that I pull out my fire is I leave it exactly as you see it here. I haven't had anything in the last decade, knock on wood, I haven't had anything in the last decade catch on fire. Now, what I have had caught on fire before is I've had buffing pads and media and little fine shreds that come off the buffing wheel in the shop that's tucked around behind a bench somewhere. I've had stuff like that caught on fire whenever I had some heavy welding or grinding where I was showering it with sparks. But as far as a coal forge, I've never had a coal forge pop out any sort of any sort of coal or have any sort of disturbance in it that it has caused a fire. Now, that brings us to the next little tip here. You have to assess where you're at, what your local fire codes require you to be doing at the end of the day for proper clean out and shutdown routines. It's generally accepted as a whole across the blacksmithing community, for the most part, that you should take and pull out your fire. That means pull it away from whatever air source that could be potentially activated, or if somebody flipped a switch and left the blower on. If you forgot you had an electric blower, you had your earplugs in, you went in the house, and then here's this thing just spitting crazy amounts of coke all over the place and catching your house on fire. You don't want to do that. The second thing is, wherever you are at, you need to make sure that it is as flame proof or unflammable as you can. I am in a workshop. I have some wooden beams, but really it's an all steel building for the most part and solid concrete. There's not really anything that I keep in my shop except for a few plastic buckets that can catch fire, besides the aforementioned things like the shreds off of the buffing wheel. So with my coal fire, I like to stove it up at night when I'm ready to go in for the evening. I just take and break a bunch of green coal over it, over my coke that's already there. And what this does is this does not actually burn the coal at all. This doesn't burn the coal. What it does is it bakes that green coal and converts it into breeze. And what I can do then is that breeze gets cooked into coke later on in the next morning fire. It gives me starting material for my next fire. After I've got this completely raked over, you'll see how smoky it gets. I'll give it a couple good cranks to make sure the center of the fire is nice and hot, and I leave it at that. If you're going to lunch and say you're going to be just outside the shop or something, you'll be back in like 5, you had to go inside real quick to get a glass of water, and you want to make sure that your fire doesn't go out if you're using green bituminous coal. Blah, blah, that's hard to say, isn't it? If you are trying to take and go in and make sure your fire doesn't go out, stove up a bunch of green coal on top. It kind of insulates the coals, just like as if you buried some hot coals in a pit. You used to do that for smoking and different things like that. It'll keep them longer. It'll keep it longer for you so you can go in, use the restroom, and do whatever you got to do. I've done that multiple times. If you live in town or you live in a residence that having green smoke, coal smoke, stuff like that is going to be a bother or be an irritant for asthma, your asthmatic neighbor or something like that, you want to make sure that you just go ahead and pull the fire out, because you don't want to take and have this taking and smoking all night long in a good summer breeze just blow and gag out your neighbor while they're sleeping in their bedroom, right? So that's not a good friendly thing to do. But if you take and do my method where you stove it up, put a ton of green coal on top, it will take and set you up properly for tomorrow. So when you start lighting that first match and throw it on some paper and kindling, you're right back up and running within a lot less time. Starting a fire completely from absolute green coal to full-on forging fire takes about 45 minutes. I know a lot of people will say it only takes 5, but that is not a good forging fire. A good forging fire will have a hot hearth in the middle of it, a nucleus, if you will, right in the center of it, that will be white hot nearly all the time, and that's indicative of good airflow hitting solid coke while it's and heating up those coals. If you've got a bunch of yellow or orange or dark spots in your fire, you have green coal still in there, and that green coal is robbing heat from your flames, and so therefore, again, it helps to set up and start with coke to begin with. So that's it for this video. I hope that'll help some of you out there. What I'm really interested in finding out from you, the subscribers and the community, is drop me a comment down in the comment section and let me know your nightly routine. How do you take apart your fire? How do you shut down your shop to take and go in for the evening? It's always interesting to me to find these things out because everybody has different situations. Some people have barns, some people have shared spaces, some people have garages, some people don't have that. They have a lean-to, like one of those carports that have a tarp over it in their back lot, right, somewhere. So let me know what it is your forging setup. I'd love to hear from you and how you take care of your nightly business of closing down the shop for the evening. Again, drop that down in the comment section down below. Stick around on the channel. We have 1,100 videos here on YouTube here at Christ Center Ironworks, and they should be popping up on screen somewhere in here around these areas here in just a minute. And as always, we thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you on the next one.